Very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. In order not to lose any time, because we are behind the schedule, I'd like to start our very special event today. Honorable guests and ladies and gentlemen, it is my great pleasure and delight and honor at the same time to have Her Excellency Mr. Jeremy Browne on Korean University campus. It is indeed the crème de la crème of the British Week we have arranged for this week, which was opened by a special lecture by Ambassador Scott Whiteman on Monday, and will be crowned by today's special lecture by the Minister of State in the Foreign and Commonwealth Office of the Great Britain, Mr. Jeremy Browne. Let me introduce Mr. Browne briefly. Mr. Browne was elected to Parliament in 2005 as a Liberal Democrat for Taunton. Born in 1970, Mr. Browne studied politics in the very prestigious Nottingham University, where he was president of Students' Council. I'm really very proud in this context to let you know that we, Division of International Studies and Graduate School of International Studies, are convening every year an international conference with Nottingham University, with the University President, Vice Chancellor, Professor David Greenaway, attending regularly. I am well informed and aware that Mr. Browne is an enthusiast of Korea and Korean University. And this is succinctly reflected in the title of his talk today, South Korea, Miracle of Our Times. This very special event is also an honor of us, as it takes place as a commemorative event of 10th anniversary of Korea University's prestigious school, Division of International Studies. Ladies and gentlemen, let us give him a big applause for coming to our university and DIS.
Well, thank you very much for that extremely kind and generous introduction. And it's a great pleasure to be here today at Korea University, which is, as was said in the introduction, affiliated with Nottingham University in England, where I myself studied just over 20 years ago now. And I understand, as was just said as well, that it's the 10th anniversary of the Division of International Studies, and I'm very pleased to be able to join you here for your celebrations. It is entirely fitting that I should speak at an outward-looking internationalist institution with strong links to Britain to advocate a general deepening of the relationship between our two countries, deepening our relationship between Britain and South Korea. In several speeches that I've given when I've been back home in London, it has been noticed that I often mention South Korea. And sometimes I use you as an example for my own country to emulate, as I will explain. The Korean ambassador in London, who is a good friend of mine, has even joked that I so often sing the praises of South Korea in public that if I carry on doing this, I might put him out of a job. It's his job to explain why South Korea is such a great country, and yet I seem to do that very often on his behalf. So I'm delighted to have an opportunity to devote an entire speech today to your remarkable country. And I want to explain to you why I have such admiration for your achievements, and I hope that you will trust me when I say that my praise is not a product of any duty I feel to be a gracious guest of your country. I genuinely see many features of the Republic of Korea as a role model for my own country, for Asia, and for all states in the world that aspire to being both prosperous and free. You have great influence and the potential to show important leadership in many areas, and I want to encourage you to embrace this role, to lead by example, and to use your influence to promote prosperity, stability, and human dignity right around the world. And I want to make the case for a deeper, broader partnership between our two countries. We share common interests, common goals, common values, and we should work even more closely together to achieve them. Now, it's my birthday tomorrow, and you don't have to... how embarrassing. Thank you. And I'm a bit old, really, for applause for my birthday, because I'll be 42 years old tomorrow. And during my lifetime, the world has gone through intense and profound change. But I do not think that any transformation anywhere in the world has been as deep or as complete as the one that has occurred here in South Korea. Over this time, just my lifetime, the Republic of Korea has grown from an economy comparable in size to some of the poorer countries in sub-Saharan Africa to being the 12th largest economy in the world today, worth over $1 trillion US. In doing so, your GDP has doubled over 9 times. Your per capita GDP has increased by a factor of almost 20, and the value of your exports is over 3,000 times greater than it was in 1965. It is a quite amazing achievement, and it is made even more incredible by the fact that such growth has occurred despite a poor endowment of natural resources, despite having a small domestic market, and in spite of the constant threat to your national security that demands considerable attention and financial resources. And it is right also to emphasize that the enormous wealth that has been created has been spread remarkably widely across society by international standards. The Republic of Korea has a more even income distribution even than Britain, which is seen by many countries around the world as being a fairly egalitarian society. And you in South Korea also have a thriving multi-party democracy in which human rights and freedoms are protected by law. Now, of course, statistics on economic growth can sometimes be difficult to visualize, can be hard for people to imagine. So when I try to explain the scale of rapid development in South Korea to friends and colleagues back home in Britain, I tell them to imagine a place, Gangnam, which when I was born was occupied by labourers in paddy fields, and I then asked them to picture the skyscrapers, the underground railway, and the business people who live and work there today. And even just driving around Seoul today, going from one meeting to another, you can see a city which has undergone really profound change. And this transformation has taken place in a little more than a single generation. But your transformation is not just economic, and it's not just local. The Republic of Korea has made a mark on the entire world. Your ships, cars, and motorbikes transport people and goods to every corner of the planet. Your mobile phones, laptops, and flat-screen televisions allow people to, in each corner, to communicate with each other. Samsung, LG, Kia, Hyundai, these are all household names today in Britain and right around the world. Meanwhile, a Korean Secretary General, Ban Ki-moon, leads the United Nations. 634 Koreans are taking part in UN peacekeeping missions, and 306 Koreans are in Afghanistan supporting the international mission there. And in 2009, your country made the landmark historical transformation, really, really significant transformation in 2009 of becoming the first recipient nation of official development assistance to reach the status of a major donor of such assistance. To go from receiving the handouts to giving the handouts is the biggest confirmation you could have of a transformation in Korea's status. And South Korea's cultural and leadership role has also grown at a spectacular pace. You have hosted events of global importance in the sporting world, like the iconic Olympics of 1988, the 2002 Football World Cup, last year's Athletics World Championships, and the Winter Olympics, which is due here in 2018, and some of the world's most important political meetings, like the 2010 G20 Summit and the recent Nuclear Security Summit. So, my point, if I haven't made it clearly enough to you already, is that South Korea has shot to prominence, and rightly so. Your meteoric rise and the manner in which it was achieved is something that other countries should and do strive to follow. There are several examples of states that have grown their economies rapidly over the last 2 or 3 decades. We could all think of examples. But there are few who have managed to do so in such an equitable way while giving their citizens the social and political freedoms in which to flourish. South Korea's rapid economic growth has taken place against a backdrop of democratization. It is a beacon of hope to those around the world who desire both increased economic prosperity and respect for their human rights and freedoms, and don't want to choose between prosperity and freedom. They want, quite rightly, to have both. But you are also an example to already developed countries like my own. It is well known that many Western economies are still suffering from the financial crisis and its aftershocks in the Eurozone. Levels of growth are low, and levels of public debt and unemployment are high. I am convinced that getting our economies in Europe, in North America, getting our economies back on track requires us to be more outward-looking, to export more, to be more competitive, to invest in infrastructure and education, and to reduce government debt. And I publicly make this point often, and South Korea is a model with many lessons for us to emulate in Britain. Here, you export more than Britain, even though your economy is smaller than ours. The literacy and numeracy rates of your children are, by many measures, the best anywhere in the world. Your research and development is cutting edge and well supported. Your population is the hardest working in the OECD, and your government debt levels are low by international standards. The modern Republic of Korea is an inspiration and an example to countries all over the world, from Asia through Europe to the Americas. Developing countries and developed countries can both learn from what you have achieved here in South Korea. Today, Korea stands proudly both as a high-income and as a high-growth economy. You have grown to prominence, to wealth, to influence. You have the ability not only to shape your own future, but also now the potential to help shape the future of the whole world order. I know this is a bold statement, but let me present you with 3 global areas in which I believe South Korea can show important leadership. The first of these 3 areas is prosperity. Korean growth has been based to a large degree on international trade. Exports comprise half of your GDP. Having little access to natural resources, you have had to import oil, steel, and organic chemicals. So you will appreciate, as much as any other country, the benefits of free trade and open markets. Yet global economic troubles and election cycles have led to calls in many countries for protection from markets. But such protection always invites retaliation, and tit-for-tat protectionism quickly escalates. As large exporters, both our countries, South Korea and Britain, need international trade. This means that both domestically and internationally, Korea can set a strong example to the world. At home, it is important that your business environment remains open and outward-looking, and that regulation remains stable, sustainable, and transparent. And internationally, I admire South Korea for being a strong champion of free trade. You are the only country in Asia to have signed free trade agreements with both the United States and the European Union. I have every confidence that Korea will continue to approach multilateral trade discussions with similar determination and imagination. Long-term prosperity will also depend on the sustainability of economic growth. Korea's high growth has proven to be the most sustainable in the world to date in terms of the consecutive decades in which GDP has grown, on average, by more than 5% per year. But looking forward, we all know that our consumption of natural resources and our emission of greenhouse gases are unsustainable. Our economies will have to make the transition to a greener model. So you should be proud to have taken the lead in Asia by passing legislation to implement an emissions trading scheme starting in 2015. In doing so, Korea will demonstrate to other countries that growth can be green. But you can go further still. If South Korea were to more loudly champion low-carbon economies globally, our countries around the world, other countries, would listen to South Korea. You could help other countries gain the expertise necessary to cut emissions, and you could export the required equipment. Everyone would benefit from a low-carbon global economy. And with your political leadership and technical expertise, you have a big role to play in achieving that outcome. By playing its part in promoting free trade and green growth, South Korea would not only benefit the world economy, it would be helping to create the conditions necessary for its own continued prosperity. The second area in which the Republic of Korea can have an important influence is global security and stability. You recently, just a few weeks ago, hosted a successful nuclear security summit where more than 50 states made over 100 commitments to nuclear non-proliferation and to preventing the spread of dangerous technologies and materials. You also showed inspirational leadership by ratifying the Convention on the Physical Protection of Nuclear Material and the International Convention on the Suppression of Acts of Nuclear Terrorism. Nick Clegg, the British Deputy Prime Minister and my Liberal Democrat Party colleague, who represented Britain at the summit here in Korea, told me that much of the summit's success can be attributed to the strong example set by Korea. And I know that nuclear security is a threat that is very close to home for South Korea. But there are also other risks and threats further away that are deserving of attention and action. Events in the Middle East send tremors well beyond their immediate region. Even in Asia, the effects of this turbulence far away has been felt in the rising price of energy and food. And the implications of Iran's reluctance to engage meaningfully with the outside world over its nuclear problem will be even more acute. South Koreans understand better than anyone else the destabilizing effects of nuclear proliferation. And I know that the Arab Spring, intervention in Libya, pressure on Syria, and nuclear enrichment in Iran are not geographically close to Korea. But in a world that is growing ever more interconnected, their effects will be felt here in Asia. And as a result, countries here in Asia have a reason and a responsibility to bring about peaceful resolutions to global problems. South Korea can provide invaluable political support for efforts to resolve such situations. We are delighted that you have joined the Friends of the People of Syria group. You are providing forces and aid to the international effort in Afghanistan, and you are contributing to international efforts to counter piracy in the Gulf of Aden. Your support for UN peacekeeping missions is also immensely valuable. It is respected throughout the world and I hope that it will long continue to be provided. And your economic size means that you can exert considerable economic influence. Importers of Iranian oil, Korea has an important role to play in assisting European and American sanctions on Iran by purchasing your oil from other producers. So the Republic of Korea is demonstrating that its leadership can have a significant positive impact on the global security agenda, and you have the potential to have further impact. Your future support for efforts to stabilize countries around the world would be very much appreciated from Washington to London. The third area in which South Korean leadership can have a major impact. We talked about prosperity, talked about security. The third area is human rights and personal freedom. Already the democracy in this country and the liberties enjoyed by your citizens set an inspiring example to the rest of Asia and beyond. But there are two very specific areas in which Korean action could encourage further profound change. The first is cyberspace, where Korea is already actively supporting progress by hosting the 2013 conference on cyberspace, which will be the third of a series of conferences started by the London Conference on Cyberspace last year in 2011. The spread of the internet is creating a new world, more interconnected than ever before. And we are only now developing the framework of understanding that will govern how the internet is and is not governed. So this is a momentous time. The rules that the international community decide upon will shape the future of internet usage. Britain is determined that these online rules are in accord with the rules that we use and the values that underpin those rules offline. We believe that people should enjoy the same rights and freedoms in the cyber world as they do in the real world. As the host of the 2013 conference, the Republic of Korea could have a big impact on the future of the online world by showing leadership in protecting online rights and freedoms. The second specific issue on which South Korean leadership could have a profound impact is the death penalty. I know that no executions of prisoners have taken place here in South Korea for 15 years. So the Republic of Korea is in practice an abolitionist country. Yet 61 prisoners remain on death row, and other countries in the region can justify their use of the death penalty with reference to its place in Korean law. By formalizing your de facto abolition of the death penalty, as Britain did 5 years after its last execution in 1964, South Korea would demonstrate a further willingness to curtail the barbaric misuse of state power, which would contrast sharply with your neighbors, whose use of the death penalty is condemned around the world. I believe that South Korea has managed to sustain miraculous economic growth because of, not in spite of, your enlightened attitude to human rights. By granting your citizens political and social freedoms, you gave them the space to be creative, to innovate, to invent a new age of electronics which are now in high demand all around the world. Personal freedom breeds collective prosperity, and this does not just apply domestically. By promoting personal freedoms and respect for human rights in Asia and beyond, South Korea can contribute to the stability and prosperity of the whole global economy. Global stability and prosperity are shared goals. So the final case that I wish to put to you today is that our two countries, South Korea and the United Kingdom, that our two countries should work together even more closely in support of common aims. We already have a strong economic relationship, and one that I believe will grow following the momentous EU-South Korea Free Trade Agreement, which came into force last July. It is the second largest agreement of its kind in the world, and by some estimates could boost two-way trade between Korea and the European Union by over 45 billion US dollars. Here in Korea, retail prices of goods covered by the agreement are expected to fall by over 6%, benefiting consumers. Over the last 50 years, the United Kingdom has been the second largest cumulative investor in Korea, the second largest investor in Korea. And Britain attracts more Korean investment than any other country in the world apart from the United States and China. So our economic relationship has very strong foundations, but I am convinced that there is potential for it to flourish further. Britain offers great opportunities for Korean investors. It is a springboard into the European single market, the biggest trading bloc anywhere in the world. Nearly half of all foreign investment into the European Union is directed through my country, through the United Kingdom, and more overseas companies set up their European headquarters in the United Kingdom than in any other European country. And we are working hard in Britain to attract even more foreign companies. We are lowering corporation tax to just 22% by 2014. That is 18% lower than it is in the United States, 16% lower than it is in Japan, and 8% lower than it is in Germany. And according to the World Bank, the United Kingdom already ranks second in Europe and seventh in the whole world for ease of doing business. And we want to do even better than seventh. We are committed to improving this ranking by simplifying British and European Union regulations. I know that the Korean government has identified some specific areas for future growth: software, semiconductors, and pharmaceuticals. These are all sectors in which Britain excels, and I hope that your companies will look to the United Kingdom for partnership. In 72 days, the world will also look to London for the Olympic Games. And over the course of the Games, we will showcase what Britain and British businesses have to offer to the world. And we hope to welcome many Koreans to the Games: athletes, spectators, politicians, media, business people, everyone, to enjoy this very special summer with us. And we look forward to sharing our experience and working with Korea as you prepare to host the Asian Games in 2014 and the Winter Olympics in 2018. The partnership that I am talking about today goes beyond reaping immediate economic opportunities. I'd like us to work even more together to create exciting new opportunities for your generation and for the next generation of people in Korea and in Britain. I have enormous respect for Korea's education system. That Korea's secondary school students top OECD rankings is well known and widely admired. But the proportion of Koreans in higher education is less well known, and it is astounding. In 2005, our then Prime Minister Tony Blair set a target of getting 50% of young people in Britain into university, which many people thought would be too difficult to achieve. But I learnt recently that 74% of Koreans undertake postgraduate level education. This is an amazing level of attainment, which is underpinning your economic advance. You are the example for many countries in the world to follow when they talk about the development of a knowledge economy. And I want our two countries to be even greater partners in education. Britain is home to some of the best universities anywhere in the world. We are delighted to accept South Korean students to study at our greatest institutions. We have no cap on the number of student visas that we issue, and the attraction for Korean students of the English language, rigorous academic standards, a cosmopolitan society, and multicultural campuses is easy to understand. And I'd very much like to see more British students studying here in Korea. Your universities may not have the long history that many of ours have, but they are strongly focused on the future. They are at the cutting edge of innovation and attract the attention of businesses looking to recruit the brightest and best graduates for the international jobs market. There are also vast areas for cooperation and collaboration at a research level. The United Kingdom research base is the most productive in the G8, and almost half of our published research is done in collaboration with overseas co-authors. Last year, there were almost 1,000 joint UK ROC scientific publications. This was a 25% increase on 2009, and I hope this trend will accelerate. Opportunities for collaboration between our great educational institutions are demonstrated by the links between Korea University and Nottingham University, which I mentioned earlier. Both are members of Universitas 21, a leading global network of research universities. They operate exchange programs and research partnerships, and I'm delighted that the Vice-Chancellor of Nottingham University is a visitor to your campus here. They even share a world-class professor of cognitive neuroscience in Stephen Jackson, who is based out of both institutions, Korea University and Nottingham University. Education partnerships can help to solve many of the problems of tomorrow, but it is not just the product of education that we care about. The process is also important, and the process of bringing different people together, of swapping ideas, of sharing success, forges strong bonds, close ties between countries and societies. And that is why I am here today and why I am in Korea this week. I want to help deepen the relationship between our two countries. That means even going beyond the crucial transactions of trade and investment. It means even going beyond important private sector and civil society links. It means building a strategic partnership in which we collaborate across the board in order to achieve our shared goals. As the world gets ever more interconnected, our challenges and their solutions will also become more interconnected as well. The strength or importance of a partnership should no longer be defined just by the physical distance between countries, or their cultural similarities, or their shared histories. In our networked world, partnerships can now also be defined by their common goals, their shared values, and their mutual understanding. And I believe that with Britain and South Korea, we have these facets in abundance. And we have much to offer from our side of the partnership. We are a major economic force, world leaders in financial services, and home to some of the world's biggest and most important businesses. We are at the cutting edge of technology, of art, of fashion. We have some of the best universities and some of the most influential thinkers and media outlets anywhere in the world. But we are also, in Britain, a major political force. Britain is the only country to have a permanent seat on the UN Security Council and membership of the European Union, NATO, and the Commonwealth. We contribute the second highest number of troops to the NATO-led mission in Afghanistan. We were at the forefront of efforts in Libya and of international sanctions on Iran. We strongly believe in the institutions built to maintain global order, and we actively work through those institutions to achieve stability and prosperity. South Korea has grown remarkably to economic prosperity and political influence. You are a role model for countries far beyond your own part of the world, and you can exercise great leadership in matters of global importance. Our two countries, South Korea and the United Kingdom, are obvious partners, and in confronting the challenges of the 21st century, we should look to one another for deep cooperation and steadfast support. Thank you.
We originally planned about a 15-minute question and answer session, but probably we have to shorten it to 5 to 7 minutes. I think despite his busy schedule, he has to visit to other venue of meeting between the Nottingham University and Korea University, but he will be ready to answer some questions if you have, especially from the side of the students. So why don't you raise your hands? And okay.
Shall I take them in groups of 3? Would that
Three.
be quicker?
That's good. Right.
Apart from I don't have a pen,
Right.
so I'll have to remember.
So we make rounds. First round of 3 questioners.
I'll try and give short answers.
So be brief in
It's
questioning.
more of a personal question, but I want to know how you spend your times in your university years. And
In my
how did you manage your time, and what was your goal back in when you were in university student?
okay. I don't know if I want to tell you that.
So
but
that means how you spend your university life, and then how did you become vice minister or minister of state? So second question, bring the microphone there.
Hello.
Yes.
My name is Sverrir from Iceland. I'm a student in the GSIS department here. And I have a question. If you could elaborate a little bit further on how the UK will work with South Korea in the future on the international platform. Are there any subjects that are more important than others?
So let's take a third question. Bring the microphone there.
Hello, my name is Stella Rowe. I'm from different university, but I'm here just sitting in. My question is, everybody talks about like we have to cut down greenhouse gas emissions and we have to go more green and everything. But I study science, and my question is, we know and scientists know that unless there is some kind of miracle, there is no renewable energy or alternative energy that has same level of efficiency compared to the energy source that we are having now, like nuclear power or the gasoline-based energy. So, like, my question is, like, what is the specific plan that you propose to achieve the more greener development plans?
Okay, I'll try and give quick answers. Thank you for those questions. I studied politics at Nottingham University, but it's not like studying medicine where that leads you to... Nobody else in my course became a politician. And actually, I enjoyed a lot of the extra parts of university. I was editor of the student newspaper, and I was elected president of the student guild, the student union. And that probably taught me more about being a politician than my politics degree. And it was very enriching experience. You know, I got to know a lot of people, a lot of different backgrounds, and I think I left, you know, a person with wider horizons than when I started. In terms of how did I become an MP, I hope the people who vote for me don't keep thinking, how did he become an MP? Well, it was a bit close. The first time I won, I had a margin of less than 1%. And I don't want it to be that close again. But it was, I was always interested in politics, and I got involved in politics, and I ended up eventually becoming an MP. Maybe that's the easiest way to answer that. Our friend from Iceland, I mean, I think we could work together in... I mean, I suppose my crucial point about the relationship between Britain and Korea, but it's not exclusive. I mean, it's about... Korea has become this extraordinary success story. I mean, this is a country in the 1970s that was poorer than North Korea, which now has a GDP of 2.5% the size of South Korea's. This is a country in the 1970s that had an income comparable to countries in East Africa, I would say. And now it's, you know, extraordinary prosperity, but that prosperity has not come at the price of personal freedom. Korea, during that period, made the transition into an open civic country that you are today. And that sets a really strong example to Asian countries that maybe think that you do have to choose between economic prosperity or personal freedom. And I think that Korea, as it becomes more confident on the world stage, can be a really natural partner with a country like Britain. We're a similar population. We have a lot of shared outlook in terms of free trade, open markets, democracy, civil liberties, human rights. There are loads of areas that I think that we can argue together. And the fact that we represent, two different continents of the world, rather than it just being, the normal European countries in one team and the Asian countries in another group and the Latin American countries in another group, I think that is a very compelling argument. That's my point. I was saying that your friendships don't just need to be your countries that you have the most shared history with or your next door neighbours. You can have friendships based on shared values, shared outlooks. And I think that Britain and South Korea have a really natural, compatible shared outlook. And the final one on environmentalism. Look, the population of the world is increasing by the size of Germany's population every year. Or population of the world is increasing roughly every 6 months by the size of South Korea's population. So, I came here 10 months ago. We've almost got another 2 Koreas since I was here July of last year. So we've got to think about how we use resources efficiently. I don't think as a politician you can say, as a person from a prosperous country like mine, you can say to people in poorer countries, you're going to be denied the prosperity which we enjoy in Britain, or increasingly now people enjoy in South Korea. I think that is morally wrong, and I think it's impossible to sell that political message anyway. So we have to look at how we can waste less energy and how we can be more creative in how we use energy. And actually a lot of that is about thinking about environmental solutions, even individuals in our day-to-day actions. But it's also about the scientific research and technology that makes every new generation of cars more fuel efficient than the previous generation, new generations of planes more fuel efficient, hybrid technologies around fuel, more effective generation of sustainable energy. It's a process, but I think in 10, 15, 20 years' time, the economies that have made those changes will look like the modern economies of the world, and the ones that haven't made those changes will look like they need to do the catching up. Do we have time for 3 quick more ones, or is it?
So let's make a second round of 2 questions.
Yeah.
Right. Please.
Hello, my name is Alex O'Brien. I'm from the UK and currently studying a master's program here at the Graduate School of International Studies. You see a lot of Korean students coming to study in the UK, but rather not so many British students coming to study in Korea. How would you see how attracting more British students to come and study here? That's my question. Thank you.
There was, yes.
Hi. I'm a student at 3rd year in the Division of International Studies, and during a speech you mentioned something called the knowledge economy and how the UK and South Korea can cooperate in the development of knowledge economy. I was wondering, are you saying that knowledge itself is a complementary way to expand upon the current political and socio-economical world order, or is it kind of like a paradigm shift compared to the ones that happened right after the Industrial Revolution that started in the UK and afterwards, where there's a shift in the world order itself? That's it.
So, Minister, we had the 2 questions. Do you want more?
They're both quite big ones, so should we stick with 2? Let me do them the reverse order. Partly because the first question is one of my favorite themes, and I want to finish with it. Point I was making about knowledge economies, there are countries in the world that's economies are growing quite quickly based on different factors. I was in Peru about a month ago. I cover Latin America as well as Asia. So I cover nearly all of the fast-growing economies in the world. I cover China and India and Brazil in the British Foreign Ministry, and Mexico and Indonesia and all these countries that are developing fast. Take a country like Peru, its economy is growing something like 8-9%, but that is largely based on mining. They are progressing in other ways, but extractive industries are hugely important to economic growth in quite a lot of those countries. Well, that is not a growth model for Korea or growth model for Britain, because we don't have lots of new minerals to dig out of the ground. We have some, but we're not going to be the most competitive, successful economies in the world based on trying to find new things to dig out of the ground. Panama's economy is growing strongly, but that's as a sort of small hub economy based around the Panama Canal and as a sort of interconnectivity in Latin America. And that may be a model for Hong Kong, maybe a model for Singapore, but I think and they've both been extremely successful. But I don't think you can quite be a sort of hub economy when you have a population of 45 or 50 million people like South Korea has. So the point I'm making is, what is it that makes your country stand out? You're not going to be able to compete on population size. How big is the population of China compared to Korea? 30 times bigger, I think. Even Japan is almost 3 times bigger. So what is it that we are going to do to separate ourselves from the crowd, if you like? And of course our economy is going to have some traditional features, but being innovative, being creative, being ahead of the debate in terms of scientific innovation, but also in terms of sort of social debate. I mean, I'd say to Britain, I think one of our greatest strengths is thought leadership. I'll give you a couple. We have won the second most Nobel Prizes of any country in the world after the US. And the US has a population 5 times bigger than us. Well, they haven't won 5 times more Nobel Prizes than we have. I think the most influential daily newspaper in the world is the Financial Times. I think the most influential weekly news magazine is The Economist. And I think you could argue that the most influential broadcaster is the BBC. And all 3 of those are British, despite the fact we have less than 1% of the world's population. It's not because other countries don't want to have influential newspapers or magazines or broadcasters, but it's because we have the creativity and the ideas. 2/3 of the Formula One racing teams in the world are based in Britain. And that's all of their engineers and for that matter, people who do the advertising and the marketing, they're not all British, actually. But Britain is a hub for global excellence in engineering of the type you see in Formula One. So that's what I'm talking about, and I think for that you have to be an open, outward-looking economy, because you have to embrace change, and you have to see opportunities to draw in people from different parts of the world that can assist. I think that's true of the Olympics as well. There's a lot of really innovative design and architecture around the Olympics, but it's not all done by British architects. It might be done by companies whose headquarters are in Britain, but the architects may be working elsewhere in the world. They may be of different nationalities. And that is the really exciting opportunity. I quite envy your generation, because that has changed a lot, even in my working lifetime, my adult lifetime. And the chances, I think, you have are hugely increased as a result. And that gets me to my favourite subject. I could end on this. Not my favourite, but one of my favourite subjects is congratulations on coming to study here. I don't say that's a great hardship, but because we should be very proud in Britain that we attract huge numbers of international students, including large numbers from Asia. We have 80,000 Chinese students studying in British universities. Again, there are more in America, but there aren't 5 times more in America, despite America being 5 times bigger than us. We are attracting huge numbers to Britain from Malaysia, from Singapore, but increasingly from countries like Korea as well. And they like it that we speak English. I think that is quite a big selling point. But I think they like the quality of our education provision. And I think they like, it's not just the excellence, it's also the creativity, the different ways of studying that can change the way that people think and the way they imagine concepts. So we should be very proud that we are attracting large numbers of students to Britain. It's good for our economy. It's good for our economy in the short term, the fee income from them paying to come. But it's good in the long term. It might be students, a Korean student at university in Britain today, and maybe 25 years' time, she'll be such a successful entrepreneur. She'll have so many offices across China and Japan, and she'll think, I'm going to expand into Europe. And we want her to open her first European office in Britain. And I think the chances of her doing that are greater because she's lived in our country and she understands our country. So we're really proud of that. But I think it's a source of regret that more British students are not more adventurous, which is why I was saying congratulations. I studied at Nottingham University, like I said. Nottingham University gets it, really gets it. It's the best British university, in my view. I'm being biased, but it is the best British university in terms of understanding globalization and Asia. 10 years ago, Nottingham opened a campus in Malaysia. 5 years ago, Nottingham opened a campus in China. There are 3 Nottingham campuses. I've been to all 3, one in Nottingham, one in China, one in Malaysia. What I was quite struck by when I spoke to a group of students at Nottingham University's China campus is there were hardly any British people. You could do a 3-year engineering degree at Nottingham University. You could spend 1 year in China, 1 year in Malaysia, and 1 year in Nottingham and get the same degree as if you'd never left Nottingham. And they're all taught in English. When you couldn't be a better opportunity, and yet very few British students at this stage quite have the imagination, in my view, to take that opportunity. Which is why I say congratulate you, and because there is huge change taking place in the world. There's a revolution taking place in the world, and it is mainly, not exclusively, but mainly taking place in Asia. And what we have to do in Britain is not feel defensive about that or negative about that. It's very exciting. The opportunities for people in Asia, in countries like Korea, are huge. But we have to understand it. We have to be part of it. We have to have the imagination to seize those opportunities. We have to say, well, we won't just have working relationships with our near neighbours, France and Germany, and we'll have working relationships with countries that think like us and share mutual interests with us, like South Korea. That's the whole point of my speech. But to help if more people have studied in South Korea or lived in South Korea or speak Korean. So I want to encourage British students to take those opportunities, and I think we need to realise more what is happening in Asia. And me speaking to you today is part of that process when it gets reported back home, is a part of telling people how exciting the future is for South Korea and how British people need to understand it and be part of it.